The Grand Union Canal predates the railway by almost 100 years, as Tim Woodbridge explains.
The Grand Union Canal's 200 years old, and this part of the canal survived surprisingly long. Generally over the canal system, the canal lasted for effectively about 100 years till 1840, when the railways came in and really started to take away trade. But right up until the 1950s, when railways were well established, the Grand Union in this area of the country was still operating very successfully. And the reason for that was twofold. The first, that the local factories such as Ovaltine and Glaxo and Neste and Heinz all located their factories on the side of the canal because it was the only way they could get large tonnages of coal into their factories. The other reason for this was that between 1890 and 1950, there was a huge development. London ended in Notting Hill in 1890, and yet in the following 70 years, there was a massive development which reached Watford and Uxbridge, and of course the railway was really the driving force behind much of that, taking people out from the outer reaches of the conurbation into the centre, and then in building in between. But the goods and materials that built much of that came from the gravel pits which stretched from Rickmansworth to Hounslow, and that a very substantial part of the canal industry survived extracting that gravel and building the houses and roads that were to make the conurbation. The boat Albert was the first boat owned and operated by the Ovaltine Company, and it was named after their chairman and founding father, Albert Wanderer, Swiss chemist, whom we call obviously Albert. We rebuilt it because it was the first boat owned by the company, and there are only about 90 or 80 wooden boats left in England, and I suspect within 5 or 10 years that's going to be down to 10 or 15.
The Metropolitan's track-sharing tradition that began with the Great Central a century ago remains unbroken to this day. Rickmansworth was an important stop on the Met, as Philip Greenslade explains.
The Metropolitan Railway first came to Rickmansworth on the 1st of September 1887. The line had been extended from Harrow, and there was one other station at Northwood between the two places. In September 1889, the line was further extended to Chesham. The water tower you see behind me was brought into use at the turn of the century. It was essential that there was water at Rickmansworth for the steam engines which had to haul the trains up into the Chiltern Hills. In 1924, the Metropolitan line was electrified from Harrow to Rickmansworth. This meant that through trains from the City and Baker Street to Rickmansworth and beyond had to change locomotives at Rickmansworth. From the beginning of 1925 to the beginning of 1934, this Bay Road was used for a shuttle service between Rickmansworth and Watford. The service provided was about 3 trains an hour, and the journey time was 6 minutes.
By purchasing whole farms on its route, the Metropolitan itself became a major player in the property business from the start. The Cedars estate at Rickmansworth was the pride of its 1920s developments. The Black Five at work. Sir William Stanier, Chief Mechanical Engineer of the London, Midland and Scottish Railway and designer of the Black Five, lived nearby at the Orchard. Chorley Wood, a county boundary and a country look. A corner of Quaker history. William Penn, founder of Pennsylvania, was married here. The manor was a meeting house and place of worship.